Hog Island Boas are a beautiful smaller locality boa with a lot of really great characteristics for keeping in captivity. Hog Island Boas are one of my all-time favorite locality boas, and I believe they have a place in every serious locality collection. Today I want to go over the physical description of these beautiful animals, show you several examples including an adult and some subadults and babies, and I'm also going to cover the natural history and the captive husbandry of these animals. I'm Brian, a boa constrictor breeder. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the Brian Boas YouTube channel for more videos on all aspects of keeping and breeding boas in captivity. Hog Island Boas originated, like the name suggests, in the Hog Islands, or Cayos de Cochinos, which is a chain of small islands about 10 miles off the coast of Honduras. There's two main islands, each about a mile or so across from where most of these animals were collected. So starting in the late 70s and continuing to the mid 80s, a huge number of these animals, something like 5,000 specimens, was collected for the pet trade. And then unfortunately by the late 80s it appeared that they were on the verge of extinction in the wild. So fortunately the islands were protected as a national park, exportation was stopped, and since then they have made a recovery and the populations are back to normal. Fortunately, with such a large population collected for the pet trade, there's a very diverse captive population. For most locality boas, the founder animals may be just a few individual animals, but with Hog Island Boas, we're talking about probably many hundreds of animals that contributed genes into the current captive population. So hopefully this captive population will continue to be stable in captivity for quite some time. The main defining characteristic of the Hog Island Boa is this natural hypomelanism. So these animals have a reduction in the dark pigment melanin, and in the absence of melanin you can see this beautiful light color. So this particular animal has a lot of pink coloration. Others have more of an orangey coloration overall. And then very often you see animals that have a lot of blue and green coloration. So they're just beautiful, one of the most beautiful forms of locality boa. This is a 6-year-old female. You can see all of the nice pink scales on her sides. This female also has quite a bit of pink in her neck. Although, as I mentioned, other examples are more predominantly orange in color. This girl just tends to be more pink. A lot of them have this speckling to them, this natural freckling. Some people have selectively bred lines that are cleaner looking and they don't have the speckling, although I personally like the speckling. I think it kind of adds a charm to these animals. They're a smaller boa, although they're not really a true dwarf. The adults can be anywhere from about 4 to 6 feet. So this female is probably about 4.5 feet. I also have a adult female that's about 6 feet. I would get her out, but she's on a conjugal visit right now. But she did make an appearance in my first video, which was called Top 5 Locality Boas. So if you want to check out that boa, or that video, you can see my other Hog Island female. So I would characterize these as a semi-dwarf boa, but certainly one of the smaller forms of locality boa. Unfortunately, the Hog Island boa has often been crossbred with other non-Hog Island boas. For example, there's a morph called a hypohog, where a Hog Island boa is crossed with a hypomelanistic common boa to create this morph. There's another form called the sunset boa where they just cross it with more hypoboas. But these are not pure Hog Island boas. When you're buying a Hog Island boa, make sure you do your homework. Ask questions of the breeder about where he or she got the breeding stock. Ask around for recommendations from friends and other boa keepers you can trust. Because I've seen a lot of people trying to pass off crossbred boas as pure Hog Island boas. It can be pretty difficult for people to tell. So again, do your homework. There's a lot of people working with Hog Island Boas. As I mentioned, they're one of the more common locality boas since they've been around for so long. And there's quite a lot the founder population was quite large compared to other locality boas. So make sure you take your time, do your homework, and get a really nice example for your collection. So now I want to show you a few holdback animals that were born here over the last few years. This is a 2018 holdback female, so she's about a year and a half old. She's probably about a little over 2 feet long now. And this particular animal kind of tends more on the orangey side than the female the adult female that I showed you that had more pink. So you can see all the beautiful oranges in her tail coloration. And then you can also see the beautiful speckling. You can see some speckling on the sides, but largely across the back we see these beautiful dark speckles. So another nice thing about the Hog Island boa is it tends to be a very nice disposition as far as snakes go. Just a very laid-back animal with a sweet temperament that you can take out and admire, and just a joy to handle. So this particular animal is eating small adult mice at this point. I'm keeping her right now in a 28 quart tub, which is this size tub. I think it's about 16 by 23 inches. But she's in a rack system. The adults can be maintained in a rack system such as the CB110 tubs for smaller adults up to about 5 feet. For the larger adults, I would recommend putting them in a 4-foot reptile cage. And of course you could put the smaller adults in such a cage if you prefer a cage to a rack system. Now I want to show you a holdback from this year. So this is a 2019 baby who's about 6 months old. So this girl is probably a little bit under 2 feet in length, but you can see the beautiful colors. This girl has a little bit more of the green and bluish tints to her, and she has this beautiful iridescence in the right light. I don't know if I mentioned, but Hog Island boas also change color quite a bit, so they will get darker and lighter depending on their temperature and their mood and things like that. One of the downsides with Hog Island boas is the babies are very difficult to get feeding. Of my babies, I would say that on average only about 1/3 of them will feed spontaneously at 2 to 3 weeks of age on a live mouse fuzzy. The other animals require assist feeding to get them going. So I've tried a lot of the tricks. I've tried lizards, I've tried scenting with lizard parts, I've tried braining the pinky, and most of these tricks don't seem to work. So usually after assist feeding a mouse tail for a few feeds, about half of the animals will eat after that, but then some of them will go many months without feeding, although most of my babies have eaten eventually. I've only lost a few that eventually just kind of wasted away. So when you're buying a baby Hog Island boa, be absolutely sure that it's feeding. Ask the breeder for the feeding records. Do not take a boa that's not feeding, because if you haven't worked with a boa yet that hasn't been feeding, it can be extremely frustrating and anxiety provoking to try to get these animals feeding. And you want to be sure that your boa has the best chance for success. So make sure that you don't get a boa that's not feeding. So that's the Hog Island boa, which I believe is a fantastic locality boa with a great deal to recommend it. They're beautiful to look at, they make great pets, and they are relatively easy to keep in captivity and don't require too much space. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions or comments, I would appreciate it if you would comment below. If you like this video, please subscribe to the Brian Boas YouTube channel for more videos on all aspects of keeping and breeding boas in captivity. Enjoy your boas.